listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good evening, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Saturday, July the 27th. I am your host, Michael Leva. And even though there was no Miami Dolphins training camp practice today, we still have a ton to talk about in the world of the Dolphins. Tua in the contract, all the details, the nitty-gritty numbers have been released, so we're going to go through that. I'm going to talk about the fan and media reaction to this contract extension, as it's kind of all over the map, and we're going to go through that. And we're also going to talk about what this contract extension means to Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel now moving forward. But before we get to any of that, today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit Caneswear.com to shop the inventory from the comfort of your own home. And yes, they will ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. Also, before we start, a big shout out as always to everyone listening at FinHeaven.com. Everyone go to FinHeaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. And a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, Podchaser, Audible, iHeartRadio, we are on all the apps. You don't want to miss an episode. Hit that subscribe button right now. We're going to have shows each and every day of the week. There is a training camp practice Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We'll have shows Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday breaking down what took place on the field and going over all that. So please be sure you are subscribed to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network on whatever app you're listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Okay, the details of Tua's contract extension. 4 years, $212.4 million, $167 million guaranteed. That's like the big picture. Now we got the nitty-gritty of all the numbers. That was released today, and it's out there now for everyone to look at. So I would say here, and I'm not going to go through every little roster bonus or offseason bonus. That's just minutia. Here, I'm going to go through some of the big picture items here that fans should really care about. If you want to see every little number, go to our website, DolphinsTalk.com. We have it all up there. If you're interested in like what the workout bonuses are, what the roster bonuses are, what day this number gets vested, we have that up on our website at DolphinsTalk.com. But for the podcast, I don't want to make this sound like a math class, so I'm just going to give you the important stuff here and the Cliff Notes version, as they say. Like I said, 4 years, $212.4 million, $42 million signing bonus. $93.17 million fully guaranteed at signing. That's yesterday. When it comes to practical guarantees, that's $147.17 million. And by practical guarantees, for those of you who might not know contract lingo, as they say, it means the Dolphins aren't going to cut them now. They're not going to cut them after this year. Out of the $167 million that is guaranteed, he's going to get 147.17 of that, for sure. And he'll get the other money as well, but it's not practical. There's a chance, something could, it gets into the minutia contracts. And I don't want to make this a math class. So that's what that is. And there's $9 million in potential incentives in this contract as well. So $42 million signing bonus, $93.1 million fully guaranteed at the time of signing, which was yesterday, and $147.17 in practical guarantees. That's the big picture items from this contract. Now, let's get into some of the other stuff here that is important, I think. The Dolphins only have $3 million guaranteed to Tua after 2026. Miami's only tied to Tua for 3 years. That's kind of a headline. His 2024, this season, base salary is $1.125 million fully guaranteed. The cap hit for this year dropped from $23 million to $9 million, which adds $14 million on Miami Dolphins salary cap space right now today. So the Dolphins picked up $14 million of salary cap space right now. So if they want to sign Javon Holland to an extension, long-term deal, they kind of have the money to do that now. If they want to rework Tyreek Hill's deal and lock him up more long-term and slide around some money, they kind of got the money to do that now. I'm not saying they will. I honestly think they're going to roll over that money to future years, and they're not going to do anything. I think they'll take care of Tyreek in the offseason. I think they want to see Holland play 1 year in an Anthony Weaver style of defense before they commit to him long-term. I could be wrong, but I think they might want to see that, and then they'll decide if, Holland is a necessary piece or, we don't need to pay him like the highest paid safety in the league. So they could do that stuff now because they just picked up $14 million cap space, or they could take some of that $14 million cap space and go out there and sign an offensive guard. Maybe go out there and sign another edge rusher. They could do something like that if they feel like they have to. I think they're going to see training camp, at least in pads for a week, and evaluate, what they have in-house. But they could do that. Okay, here's some more numbers here. 2025 offseason roster bonus, $25 million fully guaranteed. 2025 base salary. Obviously, this year was $1.125 million. Well, that's going to jump. In 2025, his base salary is $25.046 million fully guaranteed. His cap hit, which is all that really matters. The cap hit next year jumps from $9 million this year to $59.4 million next year. So when they give out extensions in the NFL, not always this way, but like 99% of the time, the cap hit in year one, which is technically this year, goes down. And you get some cap flexibility, you get extra money like they did. But then next year, the cap number is going to go way up. So again, it goes from $9 million this year to $59.4 million next. So next year, Tua is going to count $59.4 million on the cap, whatever the cap number is. 2026 goes up again. $54 million is guaranteed, and his cap hit in 2026 is $63.4 million. So from a salary cap perspective, 2024, $9 million, 2025, $59.4 million, 2026, $63.4 million. Here's why that's kind of important. With this contract, in a perfect world, Tua is playing great, they're winning playoff games, they're winning the AFC East, everyone's sunshine and rainbows. We all know that. That's the perfect world. That's the happy path. The not happy path is if things aren't going well. He gets hurt, a few times. The team's not winning playoff games. And if you're the Dolphins, you're like, we got to move on. This isn't working. After 2026 season, there's a potential out. But in reality, the best potential out's after the 2027 season. So the Dolphins technically have a 3 to 4 year window here with Tua, starting this year. So in 2026, as I said, $63.4 million cap hit. After that year, if they want to move on, they can. It's pricey. It's costly. In 2027, his base salary is $31 million, and it's a cap hit of $45.4 million. So in reality, if they want to move on from Tua, after year 4, 2027 is the best time to do it. You can do it after 2026, but the best time to do it is after the 2027 season. In 2028, and the final year, but he'll never see this money. 2028, let me make sure I got this right here. This gets a little confused. So 2028, he has a salary cap hit of $57 million, which will never happen unless the salary cap just goes up like $400 million per team, which it won't go that high. That'll never happen. And he has a base salary of $41 million, a cap hit of 57.8. So really, after 2026, there's a chance to move on. After 2027, they can move on. And again, if this is the happy path where he's playing great, winning playoff games, winning the AFC, maybe he wins us a Super Bowl, come like after 2026, they're going to restructure this deal and extend it and throw more money at his feet if things are going great. But if it's not, there's a chance to move on then. But really, after 2027 is when they can move on. So that's really, again, if you want every nitty gritty roster bonus, win this vest, let's go to our website, DolphinsTalk.com. But those are like the big picture numbers here for the next handful of years. And the Dolphins picked up $14 million more salary cap space. This year, Tua is only going to count on the cap $9,525,000. He's only eating up 3.7% of the Dolphins salary cap. Now, next year, he's going to eat up 22%. Year after that, 22%. But this year, only 3% of the Dolphins, 3.7% of the Dolphins salary cap. So, again, the Dolphins got more cap space. I think they're going to roll it over. But if they wanted to add a player or, save some for in season, if they have a rash of injuries like they did last year, and you got to keep adding players, they got a war chest where they can keep adding players. If they want to do something with Tyreek now and not wait till after the season, they can. They want to do something with Holland now, they can. They got flexibility. They want to do something with Jaylen Phillips now. Again, I think they're going to want to wait and see how he comes back from the injury and how he plays in that Anthony Weaver defense. But if they wanted to, they can. They got flexibility with this deal. And that's why, so many fans of Dolphins who wanted this deal to get done. It wasn't just to keep Tua. It wasn't just to, pay him to win like an online Twitter argument. It gives the Dolphins cap flexibility right now immediately. And that's what happened. It happened a little later than some of us would have liked. This would have got done in March, April, and May. They might have had some of this extra money when, free agency was going on. They could have signed somebody really, really good maybe, but they have it now and they have it. It can always be rolled over to next year. So that's a plus. So good news there. Again, I like this deal, but not everyone does. And I'm going to talk about some of the media and fan reaction here from this contract since it's been announced roughly 24 hours ago. I would say most of the fan opinion has been very positive. I think most fans of the Dolphins, I think the fear was that they're going to have to make Tua the highest paid quarterback in the league, pay him more than Trevor Lawrence, give him $56 million per season, $175, $180 million fully guaranteed. That's not the case. He essentially got the Jared Goff deal, pretty much the same exact deal. I mean, there's some very minor changes, but it is very minor. And it's a fair market contract of a quarterbacks make these days for a quarterback who just led the NFL in passing yards, who led his team to the playoffs and played every game. This is a fair market deal. So I'd say most fans are happy and positive. Now, I know not all fans are, and I'm going to address those fans who are not happy in a minute. But first, let me talk about some people in the media. And the people in the media are kind of all over the map. I'd say it's pretty much split on what the Dolphins did. Some people in the media think it's great. Some people are like, okay, I guess. And some people actually hate this deal. So it's all who you listen to. Here, the people in the media who love this deal and who are very high on this deal and think the Dolphins did a great thing. Those are Louis Riddick of ESPN, Pat Kerwin of SiriusXM NFL Radio, Pete Prisco of CBS Sports, and Laura Rutledge of ESPN. Those four, I'd say, are the biggest from what I've seen the past 24 hours, and I scour and I watch all these shows and I've seen all the clips. Those four, I'd say, are the biggest supporters of the deal. Riddick, Kerwin, Prisco, Rutledge love this deal. I think the Dolphins did a great thing. And that, this was a smart move and the deal's great and it's all sunshine and rainbows. I'd say two people I've seen are kind of lukewarm on the deal. They understood why Miami did it, but they have a lot of questions about if Tua can raise his games, continue to stay healthy and beat good teams. Those two people who are kind of lukewarm on the deal are Adam Schefter and Dan Orlovsky. They're like, yeah, okay, it had to be done, and it's not outrageous money, but I don't know if he's worth it. It's like they're lukewarm on the deal. Now, I got, 1, 2, 3. I got 4 people who absolutely despise this deal. If by despise, I mean hate it out loud. Bill Barnwell of ESPN, LaShawn McCoy of Fox Sports, Doug Gottlieb of Fox Sports Radio, and former Packers wide receiver James Jones of Fox Sports. Also, he doesn't just hate this deal, he despises this deal. So, Bill Barnwell hates that Miami paid him this much. LaShawn McCoy doesn't understand it. Doug Gottlieb thinks Miami's a bunch of idiots. But James Jones just, it blows his mind that Tua is making over $50 million a season. So again, the media reaction is kind of all over the place. So it all depends who you listen to. And again, who's right, who's wrong, we'll find out in time, but it's kind of a split reaction, kind of a mixed bag here. As I said on the show yesterday, the breaking news audio I did, which if you didn't listen to the breaking news audio on Friday, go listen to that show, or at least the first half of that show, because I go through and give all my thoughts on the contract and sort of, why I thought it was needed and why I support this move. And here's what I'll say. I'm happy that this is only a 4-year contract extension, not 5. I think this is a win for all parties involved. And from the Miami Dolphins perspective, they really had to pay him and not let him continue to hold in, which you cannot, hold a successful training camp that way and then think you're going to have a successful season. What he did the first 2 days of training camp of taking, half the reps and then the next day not taking any reps. If that would have continued for a week or 2 or 3, this season would have been over before it started. So I think they had to get this, if they had to sort of nip this in the bud. Now, again, I think they could have done it earlier and not wait till training camp started. But the fact it was only 2 days into training camp and they nipped it in the bud was good. I don't think, here's the thing. They couldn't have him hold in. They couldn't have him play out his 5th-year option and become a free agent. Because if he was a free agent, you would have to put the franchise tag on him. You would kill your cap for next year. Or you'd have to grossly overpay him next offseason if he played well. The Dolphins were kind of backed into a corner. Tua had all the leverage here. And do not think he did not know it. When Tua was at the mini camp or OTAs, whichever one it was, and spoke to the media, it said the market is the market. He and his agents know we got these guys by the balls. Because here's where the Dolphins' options. They either do what they did and give him the long-term extension and have quarterback peace for the next 3 to 4 years, or here are the other options. You let him play out the 5th-year option, tag him, put a hard $45 million on your salary cap next year, but since you don't have the cap space, you're going to have to trim about $50 to $55 million off your cap, gut the roster of a lot of good players, and you won't be able to sign anyone come March in free agency. That's not an ideal option for the Dolphins, a team that wants to win, who just paid their quarterback. So putting the franchise tag on him was never a realistic option. That's option A. Option B is you let him play out the 5th year, then you let him walk as a free agent. Well, that ain't too bright, especially if he plays well again. Option 3, after he walks as a free agent, well, who's going to be your quarterback? You part with something like a 2nd-round pick, send it to Atlanta for someone like Kirk Cousins, and you're going to have to pay him $40 million a year. By the way, what's to his cap hit in 2025, $40 million a year, but you ain't got to part with a 2nd-round pick for it at least. So, and who wants a 37-year-old Kirk Cousins? I mean, not me. Or the 4th option would be Tua walks and you go out there and sign Dak Prescott, give him about $60 million per season because that's what he's going to sign for. Yes, that's right, $60 million per season. If you think I'm lying, start listening to Ian Rappaport and Jeff Darlington and Adam Schefter. That's what he's going to get. And by the way, the offense we run doesn't even fit his games. You're going to pay him $60 million, and then you're going to expect him to run an offense that doesn't fit his style of play. Or option 5 is after he walks to it, you draft a quarterback in the middle to late round 1. You're wasting prime seasons of Waddle, Hill, and Achane and all the other players on offense, and you wait 2 to 3 years to develop a quarterback. So unless you strike the jackpot and get someone like CJ Stroud in round 1, which you won't probably in late round 1 it's just they were backed in a corner, the Dolphins. They had to do this. Extending him was a no-brainer. And why I am not upset about this and why my opinion sort of has evolved from March, April to where I am now and where I have been the past few weeks is we've gone down the road this far with Tua. He continues to improve each season. He stayed healthy all last season, which I think a big part of that was getting rid of the ball early. It wasn't the weight. It wasn't the Tua Jitsu or anything like that. It's just he got rid of the ball quickly. He learned not to hold on to it, and he continues to improve. And he's been here for 4 years through the ups and downs. He's sort of peaking right now. He's ascending right now. And the fact this is a 4-year deal is very, very good. And if Tua keeps improving and leads us to the playoff and wins, we're going to restructure this deal in 2 to 3 years, and it's going to look like even a better deal. But if this doesn't work out in about 3 years, Miami will clean house and they will start over because that's how the NFL works. And that's how these extensions work. Yes, the numbers look big and the numbers are like, oh my God, this guy's making this much, but there's always an out. Like I said, after 2026 or really after 2027, you can, all depending on how bad you want to get out from this, you can get out from it either way. So like after 2026, the dead cap hit will be $19.8 million, which again, it's a lot, but if the salary cap keeps going up, it's not going to be a killer. After 2027, the dead cap hit goes to like 16 point. I mean, it keeps going down. So there's ways to get out. So it's not the end of the world. And I think this is a smart move by the Dolphins. Let's see where we go from here, because I think that's very important. And it's also very important because I think this resets the clock on McDaniel, Grier, and Tua. Chris Grier's been here forever. He's like a Supreme Court judge. He's never going to leave. Mike McDaniel, 2 years have been very good, and it's very promising. We can hope he continues to improve and keeps being successful at a higher level. And for Tua, after the horrible years with Flores, he's finally hit his stride going into year 3 of this offense with McDaniel and with more weapons than he's ever had. And he's in store for his best season ever. But the clock for all 3 of them has been reset because now they're all tied at the hip. Mike McDaniel, double down on Tua with this deal. Chris Grier, double down on Tua with this deal. Tua, this is it. So they got, 3 to 4 seasons to win something. Now, I know winning the Super Bowl might be a little unrealistic, but they got 3 years or so to win something and, win some playoff games, win a couple AFC East, show progress. I know winning the Super Bowl, it's asking a lot. Obviously, that's the goal for every team. But we know a lot of good players play the whole career and never get there or win it. But if they can show that each year they're improving and they're at least making a run and, in the mix to win the AFC and get there, that's really, as a fan, all you can ask for. And then, yes, at some point you want to win, obviously. But that's the window. And if by the end of 2026 or 2027, we're not any closer than we are today, then, yeah, you blow it up and you start over. That's what every team does. They put together a team, they make a run, and if the run doesn't work out, you blow it up and start over. So, 3 to 4 years, I know for some fans that seems like an eternity, but from where we are today with Tua and Waddle and Hill, hopefully Jaylen Phillips and Holland being part of our long-term plan, Zach Sealer, Achan and so many others, we got a young core and we got a chance here to be, continued success for the next 3 to 4 years. And hopefully Tua does improve in the spots he needs to improve and puts us over the top at some point. But that's why this deal makes sense, because there was no other options. You're not going to pay Prescott $60 million. They don't have the cap space. You don't want to give up a second-round pick for Kirk Cousins, who's older than dirt. That's just stupid. And drafting a quarterback just makes no sense when everything around him would be ready to win now. And good quarterbacks don't hit the market as free agents. They just don't. So, part of it is, yeah, we're paying him because we believe in him. The other part is, what's your alternative? Dave Wannstedt. I know Dave Wannstedt. I know nobody likes Dave Wannstedt. Great. There's a clip up on our website at DolphinsTalk.com. He spoke yesterday on a radio show, and he shared a story that when he was in Miami after Marino retired and joined the front office, they were at the Combine. And I think it was Wannstedt's like second or third year. He's telling them, Marino's telling Wannstedt and all the coaches in the front office, we got to replace Jay Fiedler. We're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jay Fiedler. We got to get better at quarterback. Wannstedt turned to him and goes, Dan, I can cut Jay Fiedler tonight. That's not the issue. Who are we going to get to replace him? And he handed him a sheet of paper of all the quarterbacks at the Combine. And he goes, we've done our research on these guys. None of these guys are the next Peyton Manning. None of these guys are the next whoever, star player. They might be good quarterbacks in time, but none of them are great. And there's nobody on the free agent market. Like, yeah, you can cut someone or you can move on from someone, but what's your alternative? That has to be factored in. And for the Dolphins, why Tua had all this leverage, there was no alternative. Okay? There's no realistic alternative, at least. And I know you could say, well, just head to the draft. Good, you head to the draft, and you're wasting prime years of Waddle and Hill. You're wasting prime years of Achan. You're wasting prime years of all this talent you've put on this team. Well, you get a quarterback at pick number, 19 that Might be good in 2026. I mean, that's not where they are as an organization now. In 2019, they were, but that's not where they are today. So there's that. Now, I want to address the segment of the fan base who is not happy with this move, not happy with this contract. Do not think Tua is any good. Do not think Miami should have paid him over $50 million, $167 million guaranteed, given him this contract. Let me start with this. I hear you. Trust me, I hear you. And when all is said and done in a few years, you may be proven right. I'm not saying Tua is a sure thing here to lead Miami to the promised land or win his playoff games. Miami might have just made a huge blunder on Friday, giving Tua $167 million fully guaranteed. This might not work out. So I'm not going to shout you down, or I'm not going to talk down to you or call you names like many on social media would and do to the anti-Tua crowd. I'm not going to say you don't have a solid argument. I am saying you might be right. But I want you to hear two things from me. Two. This franchise has been awful for 20 plus years, the Miami Dolphins. What is the worst thing that can happen? We are awful for another 3 years or so, and we start over then, meaning we would be in the same place we are now today on July 27th, 2024. For a franchise that hasn't won a playoff game in 23 years, this is worth the risk. The kid's ascending. He finally stayed healthy, led the league in passing yards. This is not throwing a dart at like nobody. This is we're putting down some money on a player who's gotten better year over year, and we're hoping that continues to improve. He continues to stay healthy, and let's see where this goes. And again, 3 to 4 years. We're not saying we're tied to this kid forever. That's number one. Number two, actions have consequences. Right now, the Miami Dolphins are an attractive place for players to come and play and sign with. Word has gotten out around the league. Mike McDaniel is a good coach to play for. There's no state income tax in Florida, and the team is winning and on an upswing for the first time in forever, it seems like. If they would have screwed over Tua, pinched pennies, and decided to be difficult with a guy that they drafted who just led the NFL in passing yards and happens to play the most important position in the NFL, all that goodwill of people wanting to come to Miami, that would go away in less than 2 seconds. It would put a black eye on this organization, and trust me, players would not want to come here if they think the organization is doing players dirty and not treating them right, including a quarterback who they drafted 5th overall, led the NFL in passing yards, and then said, we're going to get cheap and I'll pay you. Again, I hear you that Tua is not a sure thing. And this might not work out, and this might blow up. But in this season of politics, we're in this political season we are in the spirit of political parties, we've just gone through a tough primary. Tua has been anointed the quarterback of the future and got the backing and support and the money of the organization. It's time for this fan base to come together, rally around the quarterback, and in good faith, that's the key word, in good faith, support this move and hope for the best. Can we have that for at least one season here in 2024? Look, I'm praying. Can we have that for one season in 2024? And if this blows up, and if Miami misses the playoffs, and if Tua plays horrible this year, if Tua gets hurt again, feel free in 6 months to rip him a new one, call for Chris Grier to get, call for his head, and you can scream from the mountaintops that you were right. You can do that. But until then, can we have one season of 2024 where let's try to be unified? Is that asking too much? And in the true political spirit, my name is Michael Leva, and I approve this message. All joking aside, let's give this a chance. Again, I'm not saying the people who don't like Tua are wrong. I know you go on social media, and you got some fans of the Dolphins and some fans of Tua who, if you don't say Tua is the best quarterback on planet Earth, they will shout you down and call you names. I'm not doing that because as I've said, I think Tua, he's not a top 10 quarterback. I think he's somewhere between 10 and 15. Good enough to win you a Super Bowl if everything goes right. And he's a good player. And I don't think there's anything wrong saying he's a good player. I don't think he's great, but there's nothing wrong with saying he's a good player. But I think it's time as his fan base at least try to rally around the kid for one season and support him. And let's see where this goes. I just think, for one season, that's all. And again, if he stinks and if the team doesn't win, go back to just being whatever and ripping everyone, but this is a good deal. And I want to talk to that fan base that doesn't love this deal. This is a good deal. If it wasn't a good deal, you know me. You've listened to this podcast long enough. I've been doing this for 10 years. I do not pull punches. I do not blow smoke up anyone's fannies. If this was a bad deal, I tell you it's a bad deal. Okay, it's not a bad deal. This is a team-friendly deal compared to what these other quarterbacks are making and what some of these guys are about to make, like a Prescott, like Mahomes and Allen, when they go back to the table to restructure. This is a good deal. So it is what it is. He's essentially got the same deal as Goff. That's not bad. So let's root for the best here and let's try to be supportive as a fan base for 2024. Okay, some quick hitters here, and then I'll wrap up. Roster moves. On Saturday, the Dolphins dropped fourth-string quarterback Gavin Hardison with Tua back every day practicing. Now they don't need a fourth-string quarterback. It makes no sense. They got Tua, White, Thompson. They're getting all the reps. That's all you need. And they signed, though, by dropping him, they signed linebacker Curtis Bolton. Now, as a linebacker in name only, he's really a special teamer. He's been in the NFL a few years, bounced around to a bunch of teams, but he's only really done special teams. So it's just, again, with no Long, no Phillips, and no Chubb, all on the PUP list here, not practicing. They need more worn bodies at linebacker just to get through a practice. That's all this is. And last topic I want to talk about real quick. Training camp is only like 3 practices old, and there's been no pads. So this is nothing to go crazy about. Until the pads come on next week, we don't know anything really. But 2 things here. The first 3 days of practice, again, 3 days, have sort of popped up, and I'm going to be focused in on more here in the coming days and weeks, and I think you should be too. Things that I think need some attention paid to them as they could be problematic areas moving forward. Number 1 is the offensive line. From people I talked to who have been there, not hearing a lot of good things about the offensive line so far. Aaron Brewer, a few, I'll say it nicely, a few bad snaps. More than 1 for sure. Probably more than 3. A few bad snaps. Jack Driscoll was at center. He had a bad snap. Robert Jones, guys are breezing by him. Again, there's no pads on, so it's tough to judge the offensive line with no pads. But even without pads, you can tell who's playing well, who's not. Offensive line, there's been a lot of false starts by not just 1 or 2 players, by a lot of these guys. Again, this is a time of year where you want to work this stuff out. I understand that, but it's been a rough 3 days for the offensive line here. Again, it's still July. Nobody's saying the sky is falling, but we knew going into the season with no Hunt, no Connor Williams, and an open spot at left guard, really, because you can't trust Isaiah Wynn. The offensive line was going to be possibly an issue, and after the first 3 practices, doesn't look great. We'll see what happens Sunday when it's open to the public. Hopefully next week when the pads come on, they look better. But offensive line, pay attention to this, because now with all this extra money they got, there's not a lot of great offensive linemen out there to sign. There's just not. But if they need to bring someone in, they got extra money to do it now. Let's just leave it at that. And the second thing I want to say, backup quarterback play, not looking great. Now, I know a lot of some of the mistakes were made by Hardison, who's no longer here. I get it. Tua, the first day, did very little. The second day did nothing. And obviously the third day he was fantastic. But I'm talking more about White and Skylar Thompson. You know, these guys have had multiple years in this offense now. And I know it's July. Can't read too much into it. Take it with a grain of salt. They haven't looked great either. So, and I know, look, what are you going to do with the backup quarterback? Few teams have a great backup quarterback. Very few do. But it was a pretty bad first 3 days for them. So hopefully moving forward, that's just 2 things to keep your eye on. Offensive line play, and if White and Skylar Thompson can just look like capable quarterbacks at times. Just 2 things. It's early, but as we know, training camp goes by in a blink of an eye. The first NFL preseason game is on Thursday, this upcoming Thursday. They only play 3 of them. The first one, I think it's Houston and maybe the Bears. I'm not sure. They're playing on Thursday. I think Miami's is coming up shortly after. It's like, training camp goes by quick, and it'll be week 1 versus Jacksonville. So if you're going to sort of focus on 2 things here, if you're reading the training camp reports from the various reporters on site, even some of the fans on site, offensive line play, quarterback play, what's going on there and then this upcoming week, and let's hopefully it improves. It should. All right, that's all for today's show. Thanks, everyone, for listening. As always, go to the website, DolphinsTalk.com, for all the latest on the Miami Dolphins. We got a bunch of videos up. We got a bunch of podcasts. Josh and Aaron, same old Dolphin show, did a show late Friday night breaking down, sharing their thoughts on Tua and the contract. You will want to hear what Josh and Aaron have to say. Check that out. We got a bunch of original commentary up. I wrote an article. Austin wrote an article. Ryan Van Hoover wrote 2 articles, I believe, on Friday. So a bunch of original commentary up. And if you want to just see some of those media people, like Mina Kimes, I got video up of her talking about the contract with Tua. I got Doug Gottlieb's reaction, LaShawn McCoy and James Jones' reaction, Pete Prisco, I got his reaction. So all those videos of what these guys are saying, they're all up on our website, DolphinsTalk.com. Check them out and hear it from yourself out of their mouths. The Wannstedt story with Marino, that's up on the website. You can check that out. We got it all when it comes to the Dolphins, DolphinsTalk.com. And again, wherever you're listening to this podcast, hit that subscribe button. I'm telling you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode when we drop one, and it goes straight to your smart device. And as I always close out, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here at the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. We have shows each and every day, pretty much starting now to the end of the NFL season, or at least the end of the Dolphin season, whenever that is. You're not going to want to miss an episode. We understand and we know that there's so many podcast options out there, not just with the Miami Dolphins, but true crime, NBA, politics, Olympics podcast, TV, movies, all that stuff. And you have a lot of choices and options, but we do thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day, each and every day, to join us here at the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. This upcoming week, Marissa Marino is going to be back in the fold. Myself and Tom, maybe Sunday night, or if not, I'll be solo again. Myself and Ian are going to get back in our regular routine, Josh and Aaron. So the gang's back together, myself and Robert Burns. We got to find time to do something here and get back on a weekly schedule. So the gang's getting back together. Every night we're going to have shows. We thank you for joining us, because without you, there would be no us. It's much appreciated. Everyone have a great Saturday night. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. And everyone have a great Sunday if you're listening on Sunday. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.